So welcome, 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 and good morning. It's absolutely thrilling to be here with you all. I was having so much fun talking with everyone that I didn't realize we were already behind schedule, so I apologize for that. But it's just a joy to be able to see each and every one of you. I'm just thrilled to be here today to celebrate the 2021 class of inductees into the School of Social Policy and Practice Alumni Hall of Fame. So for those of you who might not know, we refer to ourselves as SP2, School of Social Policy and Practice. Some of you were here when we were a school of social work. So I just want to recognize that for those of you who think of the school in that way. The SP2 Alumni Hall of Fame was established in 2018. It's a collaboration of the Office of Institutional Advancement and the Alumni Advisory Council. Through the Hall of Fame, we take great joy and pride in recognizing and honoring distinguished alumni who have made meaningful contributions to a world that absolutely needs their commitment, their skills, and knowledge. As you will hear, these alumni honorees have made such significant contributions to advance the vision and mission of our school. The honorees' impressive accomplishments include things like innovative program models, teaching, writing, research, service, and more, all outstanding and consistently impacting social policy and practice. We are all proud to have you in our SP2 family. As we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our inductees, our families and guests. I just have to take a minute and say I know some have come from Houston. Congratulations.
Thank you.
From a person who was rooting for the other team. Congratulations.
That's right.
I'd like to thank also the advisory board who led the selection of our inductees, all of our institutional advancement team, Kevin, Kristen, Bart, Donkey, I think I've gotten them all, just amazing colleagues who have organized and implemented this event. And really, I want to thank all of you for being here to join in this celebration. And now I'd like to just turn the podium back to Kevin Gary, who is our Associate Director of Alumni Relations and Student Engagement. And I want to thank you particularly, Kevin, for leading our celebration today. So thank you and congratulations.
So generally how we do this is I'll just read a brief bio of each inductee, and then we invite them to come up and give remarks and you know, really as much as you'd like to say, and any it's a really nice chance to hear directly from them. So we'll just go alphabetically. So I'll begin with Melissa Dichter. Melissa Dichter is an associate professor in the School of Social Work at Temple University and core investigator at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Center for Health Equity Research and Promotion. Dr. Dichter earned her PhD in Social Welfare and Master of Social Work from the University of Pennsylvania and her BA in Child Development from Tufts University. She completed a postdoctoral fellowship in Health Services Research at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Center for Health Equity Research and Promotion. Prior to her position at Temple University, Melissa was on the faculty of the University of Pennsylvania, Perelman School of Medicine in the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. I welcome Melissa Dichter, who is our 2021 PhD inductee to the SP2 Hall of Fame.
Everyone, thank you for being here. It's really an honor and so nice to be back here and meet some new people and see some friendly faces. Indeed, I completed my PhD at SP2 and also my MSW at SP2 back when it was School of Social Work. This school has really been foundational for my career development and also been a really important part of my personal life and development, in particular the people that I met through SP2 and in my many years with the school as a master's student, as a doctoral student, as a teacher in the school. The people I've met as my professors, as my colleagues, as my peers, continue to be my lifelong friends and colleagues and mentors, and so it's really an honor, and I just really appreciate being here and all of you being here as well. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I should have.
So it happens when you go first.
Our next inductee is from the MPL program. Allison Floyd started her career in child welfare as a social worker with the Philadelphia-based nonprofit Turning Points for Children. After identifying a gap in agency services, Allison was selected to lead the organization's emergency hunger relief initiative. In 2003, Allison launched the Food and Wellness Network at Turning Points that quickly grew to annually connect thousands of local families to a healthier, choice-based food pantry and other essential services. Allison then served as the operations coordinator for the Philadelphia-based nonprofit Repositioning Fund, a pooled fund supporting formal, long-term collaborations between nonprofits. In this role, she led the startup operations for the fund's grant-making efforts, expediting the applications process, and delivering more precise grantee data for impact assessments. Allison currently serves as the Chief Staff for Development, Marketing, and Communications at the national education nonprofit City Year. In this role, she coordinates the strategy and operations in support of optimizing City Year's external positioning while enhancing focus on private sector fundraising, development operations, and transformational investments for the organization. Please welcome our nonprofit leadership inductee for 2021, Allison Floyd.
I'm a little nervous because it's been a while since I spoke in front of people in real life. I can all relate. So I'm hoping you can all indulge me in a little bit of an activity. I'm going to make a statement, and if this statement resonates or rings true for you, I just want you to raise your hand. Okay. If the last 18 months made you take stock of your life in ways you haven't before. If the time isolated at home made you more engaged or grateful for the life you have. If the time led you to make a significant change. Or maybe if you're still feeling in limbo. And most importantly, if you had trouble remembering how to even dress for these types of events. Okay.
That's very good.
All right, good. I'm not alone. Thank you all for joining me in that. As you may have guessed, during my very self-serving little warm-up there, I have experienced a lot of transformational change in the last 18 months for my relatively young life, which got me reflecting on other times in my life when I felt that level of transformational growth, and that was here at the School of Social Policy and Practice as a starry-eyed graduate school in the nonprofit leadership program, soaking up as much learning as I could from my peers, practitioners, and professors. It was here that I rediscovered my appetite for learning, something that I have kept with me over the years. My time at Penn and the lessons from the last 18 months have helped me become someone who listens and trusts herself, approaches change with more openness and curiosity, and continues to, despite it all, see the world as it could be and not accept it simply for what it is. Of course, I would never have made it here without the love and support of my family and friends who are back there. Thank you all for walking on this path with me. Some since the very beginning, Sarah, Mom, Dad. Some since my early Philly days, Leah, Lana, and Caitlin. And then some very new but already making a lasting impact. Habibi. You are my people, and my heart is full of love and gratitude for you all. I also want to recognize the amazing group of thought partners, visionaries, radicals, and all-around badass change makers who make up the nonprofit leadership program and alumni community and the broader SP2 community. Your commitment to a better, more just world lights me up and fills me with an intoxicating hopefulness for the future. And so during this time of re-entry back into the world as it is, I want to leave you with a few questions I have found helpful when considering how to rebuild. What is no longer serving me? Second, what might be harming the people and communities I care about? And then most importantly, and the reason I know we are all here, what am I going to do about it? So with that, thank you so much. I am so honored and grateful to be part of this incredible community.
Yeah.
Oh, it's right here. Thank you.
Our next inductee is from our MSSP program. Ashley C. Kenneth is president and CEO of the Commonwealth Institute for Fiscal Analysis. At TCI, she is able to turn her passion for racial and economic equity into action. As president, Ashley provides the vision, inspiration, and strategic management to achieve the organization's goals, maximizing the impact of TCI's policy analysis and legislative engagement, and strengthening collaborations with partner and community organizations. Ashley previously worked as Director of Advocacy and Policy for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, where she was responsible for policy development, analysis, and volunteer engagement in Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. Ashley was a member of the inaugural cohort of the National Fannie Lou Hamer Fellowship, a year-long training and mentorship program aimed to prepare fellows to be the next generation of exceptional leaders in the progressive movement. In 2021, Ashley was appointed by Governor Ralph Northam to the Commission to examine racial and economic inequity in the law. She has a master's degree in social policy from the University of Pennsylvania and a BA in communication and sociology from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Ashley lives in Richmond, Virginia with her family. Please welcome our MSSP inductee, Ashley Kenneth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just want to soak this in for a minute. Thank you so much for this tremendous honor. I wasn't sure at first if I should prepare formal remarks, but I wanted to use this opportunity to acknowledge that we're in a transitional moment in our country, where there's an opportunity to enact new social policy that doesn't just help us recover from a pandemic, but makes transformational and generational change. Change that challenges assumptions, helps us reverse course and right wrongs, build economic opportunity, and provide the resources and supports that will help all of us to thrive. These are the types of moments where leaders shaped by SP2 are most needed to help design, analyze, implement, and advocate for policies that are just and equitable, and for change that centers the needs and the leadership of impacted people. I'm grateful to be one of those leaders shaped by SP2. I've been blessed to be at the center of critical conversations and important policy shifts, but my joy and motivation comes from knowing that the change that I help to bring will have a long-lasting impact, particularly for Black and brown folks in a state that was once home to the capital of the Confederacy and the state where my own ancestors were once enslaved. My work has been about shifting the narrative and making sure my Black sons and others like them live in a place where folks can succeed without barriers due to things like income and race. I haven't gotten to where I am and where I'm going without the help of many people. My husband, who I met just a few miles from here, has been with me since the launch of my career. My boys, Alonzo and Mandela, keep me grounded. My parents and siblings helped me learn that I was strong enough to stand on my own, but that they would always support me. My extended family and friends, I'm blessed that my Aunt Nancy traveled to be with me today. And one of my best friends, Jasmine, and her husband also traveled here. And then, of course, past and present staff at SP2, particularly Ms. Vaughn, who has been a relentless cheerleader of mine, and Dr. Spagner. Again, thank you for this recognition, and cheers to my fellow inductees.
Thank you. There you go. Thank you. Our next inductee is from the MSW program. Dr. Anu Rao served as ombudsman at Princeton University, MD Anderson Cancer Center, Asian Development Bank, and OMV Petrom in Bucharest, Romania, where she practiced according to the standards of the International Ombudsman Association to resolve disputes by confidential listening, coaching, and meditation. Skilled in conflict management services, she provided neutral and confidential services to individuals and organizations, and provided executive and conflict coaching services to leaders, academics, and employees at all levels. As an organized development practitioner, Dr. Rao is a systems thinker with expertise in facilitation, training, and team building. She has provided strategic planning, culture change, process change, organizational interventions, turnaround, and team building for work groups. Dr. Rao uses interviews, 360 feedback, appreciative inquiry, equity, and other tools to make assessment and provide feedback for changes at all levels. She worked in higher education as Director of Organizational Development and Training at Princeton University and the University of Pennsylvania Health System and Medical Center. And she was the founder-director of Penn's Faculty and Staff Assistance Program. Dr. Rao has handled complaints of sexual and workplace harassment, served as a consultant in gender staffing, and strategic program development for the World Bank Ecosystem Centers and scientific organizations. Please welcome Dr. Anu Rao, our MSW inductee for 2021.
Kevin?
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. I think I'll just move over here. I always find this podium's a little centered around tall people. So thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, Dean Sally Bachman, for the award. It was totally unexpected and just such a wonderful honor. I really appreciate it, and I'm deeply humbled, and thank you for it. I have to tell you that the School of Social Work, I refer to SP2 as the School of Social Work because that was my origins, so I'm sure you'll bear with me with that. School of Social Work was a transforming experience for me. I came as an immigrant from India in '73, and I applied to the School of Social Work at Penn quite by accident. What happened was my goal was to get an MSW from Temple University, and I'd taken many courses, graduate courses at Temple, because the dean had suggested that I do that, and I hoped that I'll get a degree from Temple and be a social worker. It's all I wanted to be, was to be a social worker. Because I had an MSW from India and I didn't have a chance to practice there. So when I came here, I tried to pick up the strings, as it were, from there and continue my life. But Temple could not admit me for one reason or another, and they kept telling me to do this and that and apply to the BSW program. I did all of that, and they wouldn't admit me because they said I was too qualified or didn't have enough stuff. But they wouldn't figure out a curriculum for me. So I had a few dollars in my account, so to speak. I had a 2.5-year-old child who is now Mika Rao, sitting up there at that time. And a little bit of change in my pocket. My last bit of change was given to the babysitter that day. So I'd been at Temple the whole day waiting for them to put together some kind of curriculum. Didn't happen. I was so frustrated. In the evening at 6 o'clock, I wouldn't go home. I went back to the dean's office and said, "You told me to do all of this, Dean Curtis. Here I am. Nothing's been done. I'm not going to go home until it's done because I can't afford another day of babysitter." Really, I could not. And so the dean didn't know what to do. So he caucused with the faculty. They talked to Eunice Gladsberg, who was a doctoral student here at Penn. And she talked to Dr. Louis Shoemaker, who was the dean at that time. And after a lot of back and forth, they asked me to go to school social work the next day. And I said, "No, you're just sending me from pillar to post, and I'm going. I'm not going." But then they asked me to go. And I said, they put me on the phone with Dr. Shoemaker and told me, she said, "No, really, I'm going to see you tomorrow, if it's for real." So I said, "Okay." So next day, Mohan, my husband who's here, brought Mika, and they sat on the bench on Locust Walk while I went to the school social work and produced my dossier. I had my MSW, I had Pennsylvania state accreditation, I had all the papers. I had my master's thesis and everything. So they took a look at that, and they caucused in the faculty, and then they admitted me as a student with advanced standing. Merritt, excuse me, it was just a great moment. And after that, it really changed my life because I began to understand that racism and sexism are major vectors in American life, and they affect everything and everyone. Some of us are affected more than others. And so it changed my life, it changed my outlook, it changed what I wanted to do, it changed my personal life. So I can't tell you, everywhere I've gone, I've tried to work very hard to give back what I learned on issues of race and sexism. And I have to tell you, Dean Louis Shoemaker was a wonderful mentor because I joined so late, because they told me to come back and start school next week, and we had no money and no plans. But Mohan plunked down the last bit of savings he had for me to go to school, and so I started the journey here. And after that, I've just been very lucky because Louise mentored me, and I was one of the founders of the Faculty and Staff Assistance Program with Louise's help, which has now become a big behavioral health program with the School of Medicine and serves faculty and staff on Penn's campus. Now it's 30 years old. Can't believe it. So, more than that. Never mind. It's not an issue here, right? So, I also co-directed a center called Center for Research on the Workplace with Professor Markston sitting over there. He was my colleague, and he was a co-director of the center. So we did lots of wonderful things at Penn. Penn has always been there, school social work for me. So when I graduated in '96 with a PhD from city planning and Wharton, and I got a job in Bryn Mawr College to teach social work. But a little later, they called me back at Princeton and asked me if I would be an interim ombudsman. So I started a career of ombudsman, and I abandoned my academic career. So from then on, I came back to work at the medical center, and this is just to say how much the School of Social Work helped me. I was walking back on Locust Walk one day because my doctoral program was going to kick me out. I was reaching the 10-year mark, and they said, "You have to fish or cut bait. You can't do this anymore." So I was walking back, and I was walking with Ira Harkavy, who was the dean of the School of Social Work. And Ira said, "You have finished the PhD, Anu. You can't just be playing with that." I said, no, it's not that. I don't have time to work. It's so busy. He said, dump the job. Oh, you can be a lecturer in the school. So Mark, if you remember that time, so I took up the lecturership at the school. So again, the School of Social Work helped me to finish my PhD. So I'm so grateful to the school. It's been everything for me. It's been my mainstay. It's affected my family life. Mika does a lot of work in nonprofits. All of my family, of course, we came with a history of working with nonprofits. I'm so delighted to hear of my co-inductees and the work you're doing, Kristen, and others. It was so great to hear about you. So I'm sorry to go on, but anyway, I just really want to thank you. I had a great career and a great life. And I'm really pleased to introduce my mentee, Miss Yoon Lee. She's in the first year MSSP program. I just started working with her, and then this came along, so I had to, invite her here. Speaking of mentees and mentors, I have another person I want you all to meet, and that is my friend Dalaki over there, who's stand-up Ellie. Ellie's been a friend and fellow mentor. She used to be the director of the Penn Women's Center, a big social activist in Philadelphia, and we have journeyed together to do a lot of social justice work in the city and everywhere, including in Houston, which needs it now. So thank you all. I'm so grateful to Dean Shoemaker, think about it today, and Ellie, because you really ignited my fire. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we are at our final inductee for our DSW program. Dr. Todd W. Rofoth has just completed serving for 20 years as chairperson of the Social Work Department at Southern Connecticut State University and was the former director of the Urban Studies program for 10 years. He has taught at both the doctoral, master's, and undergraduate levels, including many courses in management, leadership, research, social welfare policy, ethnic realities, and the Thesis Clinical Practicum Seminar. Prior to working in academia, he served in appointed leadership management positions in Maryland and Pennsylvania state government, serving as the director of Maryland's Welfare to Work initiatives, as director of the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare Office of Client Rights, and as a special assistant to the Secretary of Public Welfare in Pennsylvania. He also worked as a policy analyst in the Office of the Administrator of the General Services Administration in President Carter's administration, redesigning procurement regulations to provide greater opportunities to women and people of color. While in the doctoral program at Penn, he worked as a senior research associate at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, studying the impact of economic development on job creation for low-income populations. He is active in the New Haven community, currently serving as the secretary on the board of the New Haven Occupational Industrialization Center and treasurer of the Board of Governors of the New Haven Lawn Club. Please welcome our doctorate in our DSW inductee for 2021, Dr. Todd Rofoth.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I had to, I kind of got a long speech here, so I cut a few things out based on what people have said. So, and I added a few things too in reference, because you're here, so I had to do that. Anyway, this is a huge honor. I really appreciate it. I never expected with my career to end up this way here at Penn, from a guy from Minneapolis, Minnesota, out in the Midwest, long ways away from Philadelphia. Luckily, I got to go to Washington, D.C. first, where they had a few more trees than they did in downtown Philly. I don't think I could have made the transition to totally an urban environment. Before I get started, though, I want to thank a few people. My daughter is not here, and my sister is not here, but they live far away, and they're both busy, and they're lawyers, and they like to give me constructive criticism, so therefore, they're not here. And my daughter's mother's right here in the front, raise your hand. She's another lawyer who's supported me over time, and also gives me constructive criticism, but supports me as things go on. Other people that I'd like to thank who are, some are here, some are not here, is Peter Vaughn. He used to be like associate dean at Penn many years ago. He interviewed me to get into the program. I had to come up here from DC, have an interview with Peter. I don't know, we got talking about Angela Davis for some reason, and we had a good conversation. I'd been to some event she had, and he really liked that. So he let me into the program. And I had a conversation with him recently. And he said, well, there must have been a few good things I did here at Penn. And he was a dean at Fordham for a number of years. Was he there when you were there, Julie?
He was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was on the board of directors of the National Association of Deans and Directors of Graduate Programs, and vice president for a number of years. And I used to plan the conferences and events, and Peter always came, and we had a good time together. He was a Vietnam War veteran also, and he's had a few health issues, or he would have been here today. Mark Stern's back here, I hear. Where's Mark? Hey, Mark, how are you? Mark is a former professor of mine. He was on my dissertation committee. And are you the guy that made me write those extra chapters? I don't remember. Was that June Axel? Was that you? Okay. Somebody did that to me. I don't know. It took me a little while longer. My classmate is not here today, Patricia Merritt. She won this award last year. Does anybody here know her, Patricia? Some of you might. Okay. She got the award last year. I've had her as a guest lecturer. One of my colleagues is here, Julia Pipenbring, who we teach together, of course, in the doctoral program. We have Pat come and give a lecture on the struggles of black women in leadership roles today, and how some of them succeeded, some not, based on the tough struggles they encounter. Anyway, Pat inspired me and helped me with a couple classes and helped me graduate, and I always tell the class I wouldn't be here today without her. So, Julie and I wrote a popular textbook in 2019, Leadership and Management and Social Work. It's actually, everybody I talked to is using it, but how much money did we make last year? $50 or something like that? It's ridiculous. So, we were just in Baltimore last week doing a presentation for the conference, Higher Ed, Leadership and Higher Education. We did a couple presentations, and we used some of the material from that book. And Darlene was there, one of my former associates in Maryland. We went out and ate crabs. The price of crabs has gone up. It's like $95 for 12 crabs now. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I highly recommend that book. I'm always selling it, right, Julie? Everything you need to know about leadership and management if you run a nonprofit agency or you're at a graduate social work program. Esther Howe is here, colleague of mine. Wake up, Esther. There you are. She drove up from DC this morning.
Oh, nice.
So, what time did you get up? 4:30?
4:30.
All right. Anyway, Esther now teaches part-time at Southern and at Catholic University. And I've known Esther for a long time. You were our field director once upon a time. All right, Darlene and Cheryl. Darlene surprised me with Cheryl. Raise your hand there, you two. They both used to work with me in the Department of Human Resources in, was it the Sarasota Center in downtown Baltimore? Many years ago, we ran that department. Basically, it was how to get people jobs in Maryland. The governor would always come and say, all right, how many people did you get jobs for, and how much did they make? And it's like, this was in the 1980s. You know, the computer systems were like antiques. There was like no way we could even answer simple questions. I don't know if they can answer those questions today or not. Maybe they can. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe? Who knows? Wesley is here, my niece-in-law from Puerto Rico. Wesley's had quite a career herself. She's a general manager of Casa Bacardi and winner of the Ideas X Puerto Rican Prize, awarded to a leader who has demonstrated their commitment to finding solutions to social and economic problems in Puerto Rico. Thanks for coming, Wesley. One of my colleagues is not here, Ann Abbott. She used to be the director of the West Chester social work program, lives nearby. She just got back from out of town and she had a kitchen flood, so she couldn't make it. Walter Cohen was going to maybe come, but he couldn't make it. He used to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the state. He was Attorney General at one point for Pennsylvania. He hired me to be a special assistant where I was for 5 years. And his daughter, Elizabeth Lamate, is actually on the board of SP2 and lives in DC. I used to go skiing with his daughters. They were little kids. We would hop in the car. They were always excited to see me. We'd go off. We'd go skiing all the time. And they'd get disappointed if I didn't show. Anyway. A couple other people who aren't here I'd like to thank. Bill Rowe was a dean at a couple Canadian schools and in South Florida. And he came to Southern for about 8 years. And he was a great person to have around to bounce ideas off when things would be going south and administrative issues. Michael Austin, I have a lot of connections to Penn. Michael Austin, former dean at Penn. He was dean after I left because Shoemaker was dean when I was here. And he probably wrote like 20 to 50 letters of reference for me when I was looking for academic jobs because I got my degree and then I worked for like 10 years. And so his secretary was always like, what, another letter? I can't believe it, I can't write any more letters. Frank Baskin, he was the former dean at my university and the Virginia Commonwealth University. He hired me. He was on the board of CSWE for a number of years, and he's still around doing some stuff for Virginia Commonwealth University. Another friend of mine who's not here, Jaak Rockfield, he's my Estonian colleague who has been at Southern with me for a long time. And Jaak is a great friend because he has an Estonian sauna and massage chair. And that's where we go after faculty meetings. We have to disengage and relax, and that's a great way to do it. In fact, if you take a sauna 3 days a week, you'll never have any heart issues or high blood pressure. Two other people, Sarah Silverberg and Naomi Silver, whose child psychology parents were my mentors, and they wrote the book, Who Speaks for the Child? And they were part of the Native American community in Minnesota. I want to thank them. And a couple close friends. I have an old friend, Patrick Milliman. He lives near me in Norwalk, Connecticut. He just retired, and get together and decompress with him, playing poker, chess, and other things. And Steve Nemchek used to be married to Louise Shoemaker's daughter. So he was the son-in-law. That's probably how I got into the school, by the way. I actually had lunch with him just yesterday. Thursday. What's today? Saturday on Thursday. And he told me all about his kids and his ex-wife, etc. So I want to tell you a few pre-Penn stories now. How did I end up at Penn? I was a very good student in high school. But to be honest, I was mostly focused on sports and activities like that. Went to a few parties. We used to have these keg parties along the Mississippi River, where you have a big keg of beer and you try to drink the whole thing, 5 guys. Very bad. I don't recommend it. I was a captain of the tennis and hockey teams, and in fact, 2 years ago I got nominated and inducted into the De La Salle Hall of Fame for tennis, as being on the only undefeated tennis team in the state's history, so that was quite an honor. So if you'd asked me about Hall of Fame, I always thought it was for sports. Didn't know it was for other things. So I kind of have a sports motif running through this whole thing. It's fair to say that as a young man, I didn't really understand and feel the way, and understand the way that sports could have an impact on building character and resiliency. Resiliency is a big word, obviously, in social work. And with I was also with the School of Social Work when I was here. And it was founded by these functional ladies, and they probably believed in resiliency. I don't know what they believed about policy stuff, but, we'll see. They were the founders of the social work profession. I think Penn was like one of the first schools of social work, right? The very first one? Great. Okay. What, Columbia is? No. All right. Anyway, throughout my career, I found myself always going back to using sports on how to build teams. And in this book that we wrote, it was all about teamwork. How do you build teamwork? How do you get people to work together to move on and move forward? And anticipating, all the grueling things that can happen in life, and appreciating coaches and mentors and stuff like that. In fact, I've mentored a lot of people through the Network for Social Work Management, which is an organization that helps in social work for management and leaders, and I do mentor a couple people every year through that organization. So it's good to see a mentor and a mentee here also. It's very important. So at Penn, When I first came here, I had to find a place to live. So I went to the housing office. I came up from DC, I went to the housing office. I saw a little note on a house on Camac Street. Does that still exist downtown, little Camac Street, I think?
Yeah.
Okay. I went there and I interviewed with this woman, and she was looking for 3 roommates, and so I was one of the roommates, and it ended up with 3 women and me. So I don't know how that went. We took turns going to the market. Okay. And where I was exposed to Scrapple. Anybody had Scrapple lately? I was hoping it would be on the menu, but it wasn't. Scrapple and other good things. Those cheesesteaks were good too. What did I learn at Penn? I learned a lot of things, but mostly I had some amazing coaches and role models who taught me how to write better, because I really wasn't a very good writer. And in fact, it was more difficult in those days because they didn't have computers. It's like once upon a time. But I did have an electric typewriter, which self-corrected.
Yes.
So there you go. Electric self-correcting typewriter. And when I did my dissertation, I found somebody on the campus, a secretary who had her own home computer. So I paid her to put my dissertation in her computer. And then I was able to edit it. So that saved me a lot of time. I got to do original research. I think June Axon sent me down there to Library of Congress to do some original research on mothers' pensions from like 1890 to 1910. So that was great, seeing the big picture. And I was always a believer in the big picture. I was a member of the Futurist Club at the University of Minnesota about what the future is going to bring. And I kind of continued that when I got to Penn here. And that was great. Mark, as I mentioned before, was on my dissertation committee, along with June Axon and Larry Hirshhorn. So I looked up Larry the other day. I guess he's still around. He's a former adjunct at Wharton and a founder, along with Tom Gilmore, of the Center for Applied Research, which was a predecessor of the Management and Behavioral Science Center, where I actually worked my latter part of my Penn years and got to work with a lot of different people from different professions. So that was great. One of my classmates at Wharton, Allison Scott, got me the job at Wharton. I was hired to do this economic development and job creation project. And the project was like $100,000. That was a lot of money in 1978 or 79. Good thing is I got to use my dissertation for that. So that worked out very well. And they paid me. And my tuition was free. So it was a great deal. And I thank Penn for that. My dissertation topic, by the way, was economic development and CETA, the employment impact of economic development assistance to private sector firms in Philadelphia. While at Penn, I also learned the importance of self-care, and in fact used the Penn facilities a lot to play squash, play tennis. I used to actually practice with the women's squash team because I could actually beat the women, but I couldn't beat the men. But I don't think I could beat the women today, because women's squash today has come a long way. I also like to play tennis. Do they still have that court in the middle of the campus? They have a couple tennis courts right in the middle of the campus. Anybody know? Tennis courts in the middle of the campus? I don't know. Anyway, they used to have courts in the middle of the campus, and people would come there at noon and watch people play. And so I used to play with my friend Andy Scott, who I invited to this, but he was ill today also. And so we used to play there at noon and like while putting on a show or whatever. We both played in college, so we were kind of. I also got to play with another famous Penn person, E. Digby Baltzell, famous Penn sociologist. He popularized the word WASP. I met him through his daughter Eve at a dinner, and we agreed to play tennis the next day. So I showed up at the indoor courts. Digby came out in his Bill Tilden outfit. Bill Tilden was a character from like 1910, wearing long pants, long sleeves, and all the whole shebang. And he was very good. I mean, I was like, I don't know, late 20s, he was in his 60s, and so I was thinking, I gotta move this guy around, he might actually beat me. So I started moving him around. He quit after the first set, said, I don't feel well, went home, had a massive coronary. Luckily, he lived for another 15 years, and I used to see him on campus, and I'd always go the other way. And I didn't really like his daughter anyway, so I never saw her again either. So, sorry. The other thing I got to do at Penn was work with people from all over the world. I had a classmate, Ivo Resnicek, from Czechoslovakia. We did a paper together. I had another classmate who was from Israel, who was a military guy. I think he probably became a general at one point after he left. We did a paper on strategic planning. over at the Wharton School. I did take a number of classes at the Wharton School. That was another advantage of Penn. They let me take classes both in social work and at Wharton. And I already mentioned Patricia, where she helped me with the class. I had one professor, name won't be told, who didn't like me and probably would have flunked me. So Patricia and I did a paper together, and I survived, and that's how I got the degree, I guess. Thank you, Patricia. I also enjoyed taking classes with MSW students. Okay, and I had a great class in sociology with Frank Furstenberg at Penn. He's still kind of around, right? He's the Zellenbach Family Professor of Sociology Emeritus. I also had Anita Arrow Summer. Anybody remember her? Yes. She's still around. I looked her up. She was Larry Summers' mother, who was Larry. We all know Larry was a dean at Harvard that thought, women couldn't do math, so they had to fire him. Anyways, mother was very nice. She was great. Today, she is 96 years old and Professor Emerita, Business Economics and Public Policy here at Penn. She has 3 Nobel Prize winners in her family. Kenneth Arrow, her brother, won a Nobel Prize. Paul Samuelson, who she's related to, macroeconomic fame, won a Nobel, and one other person. I used to play squash with her, with Paul's son in Boston. He was Paul Samuelson Jr. many years ago. Also, I'm kind of a history buff. I think you'd like that, Mark. Weren't you a history guy to begin with? So I really loved coming to Philadelphia. It's like a great old city. I used to jog down to the Liberty Bell and Society Hill. The significance of Philly is first capital of the U.S. with the Continental Congress. It wasn't the first capital of the U.S., but it was the first with the Continental Congress. And they used to meet in Carpenter's Hall from September 5th to October 26th, 1774. Then they moved to Independence Hall. So I thought that was a little twist on the whole situation. Excuse me for a minute. Following the creation of the Articles of Confederation by the Confederation Congress, which convened in 1781, like the Continental Congress, the Confederation Congress elected a president to preside over its debates. First president of the Confederation Congress was Samuel Huntington from Connecticut. My daughter and Adele here are actually descendants of him, so we have a little bit of a relationship there. And my great-grandfather was a member of the 1st Minnesota Infantry Cavalry Regiment, the first to send volunteers from the North in the Civil War. That regiment fought at Gettysburg, stopping the Confederate incursions at Cemetery Ridge and then Pickett's Charge. And that unit had a 90% fatality rate. Luckily, my great-grandfather lived, or I wouldn't be here today. And the failure of that Pickett's Charge effectively ended the Battle of Gettysburg and was a turning point in the war. On a lighter note, I really enjoyed the food of Philly, although it's not like today where there's so many restaurants around here. There used to be a food truck right outside the building. It's still there, that food truck? They have cheese. They used to have cheesesteaks. I thought it was great. And La Terrace is no longer here either. Nice little restaurant I used to go to. I had the honor of not only going to their Bastille Day parties, but I had the honor of taking Sarah Weddington there once to dinner after she debated Phyllis Schlafly in the 1986 American Public Welfare Conference, which I was the conference chairperson of. Sarah was the chief lawyer in Roe versus Wade, right out of law school practically. She was later in the Texas House of Representatives and also served in Jimmy Carter's administration as Director of Public Affairs. Also during that same conference, I got to interact with the current mayor at the time of Philadelphia, W. Wilson Good. Is he still around?
Yeah.
Okay, so I needed to find him one day and bring him to a reception in City Hall. He was up in his office somewhere. So I go into his office and I go, let's go. They're waiting for you at the reception. They got good food, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, how come there's nothing in your office? There's no pictures, nothing on your desk. He said to me, let me tell you something, son. Never sign anything and you won't get in any trouble. Unfortunately, he did get into trouble, right, with that move group? Didn't the whole block blow up or something once upon a time? So I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, and I also like this dive bar near my house on Kamak, Dirty Frank's. Is that still there?
Dirty Frank's is still there.
Sawdust on the floor. It was like a block from my house. It was a great place to go. I was also here when the Phillies won the World Series both times, in 1980 and 96 or whatever. In 1980, I was here. My sister was visiting, and I was at some bar down the street, my house, and I was standing by a big glass window, and somebody leaned up against me. I went right through the window. into the street, grabbed my sister and said, let's get the hell out of here. And then I was back, I guess it was 2008, they won again. We were at a conference in downtown Philly. They locked all the doors in the hotel because the crowds were coming down the street after winning the World Series. And the former dean, Richard Gellis, had an event at Union League because of the 200 deans at the time, probably like 10 to 20 of them were Penn graduates who were deans, directors, et cetera, programs. So we had a little event there at the Union League, and we had to get up and tell all the other deans something about us nobody knew. So I told them, well, I was from Minnesota, I used to play hockey, and I used to play against Paul Holmgren, who also was from Philly. He was the general manager and president of the Flyers, and he was a player during those bully days, I guess that's what they called them. And as for Gellis, I used to play a lot of golf with him, your former dean, at the NAD meetings, and so we'd have these conferences. They were great. They were supposed to be about leadership development, learn things and share things. Well, Gellis and I would play golf, and then he'd go to his room and just work the whole time. So I guess maybe that was his style. I'm not sure. One last thing I did here was right in 1980 during the presidential election, I did do some advance work for Rosalind Carter, Jimmy's wife, when they were running for president, and another good friend of mine, Dave Schultz, not the one from the Flyers, but a different guy. He was a doctor friend of mine who was going to Europe for Beyond Doctors Without Borders, and he later founded a great organization called Neuro Pain Clinics in Minnesota, where he developed some great techniques that are not oxycodone. Okay, post-Penn. After I got out of Penn, I went to Boston, did some private consulting for a couple firms on how to hire people if they got economic development assistance. I moved to Harrisburg, worked for Walter. I told you a little bit about that. That public welfare agency was a huge agency. We had to deal with big decisions. We did a lot. But the most interesting I think I did there was I wrote a grant proposal for like $3 to $5 million to do a welfare reform demonstration in downtown Philly. Basically designed the program so anybody who was in the system we would give them anything they wanted, childcare, medical assistance, whatever, or go back, get your GED to get a job. So that was kind of a good program. And it was mentioned before, I was the director of client rights at one point too for a while. And then I went to work for the governor of Maryland in the Office of Welfare, Employment, and Policy. And we did a lot of good things there, don't you think, women, my colleagues here? They merged that with the Department of Labor at some point or something, I don't know. Disbanded it eventually. I also did some adjunct teaching at Penn a long time ago. I taught in the doctoral program a class called The Politics of Welfare. This was in the 1980s. And I also taught a little at Penn State. This is when I still lived in Harrisburg. I won't say anything more about Harrisburg. Capital of the state was Ronald Reagan country when I lived there. Sorry, I'm almost done. In 1990, I finally went into academia after many years of being working for government, etc. I did a fair amount of consulting. I wrote a bunch of grant proposals, that were great for my school and people in general. And then I just recently concluded 21 years as a chairperson, long time. Couple significant things. I was in China in 2016 in this famous city called Wuhan. Anybody remember that city? Okay. I did go to one of those markets, and it was kind of a unique experience. And so we had a relationship with them, we still do, and although it's kind of slowed down, we're dealing with China today, but we're hoping to get it back again in the near future. And it took me over 20 years to get a DSW program at my school. And your former DSW director was one of our consultants in developing that program. And it turned out great. We graduated our first class last year, 15 students. We have 15 coming in every year. It's good for the university. They're bringing in students, so it's great. Our social work program, when Esther was there, we were the 4th hardest program to get into in the country in 2009, probably because our tuition was pretty cheap. It was a state university and we had a good program. I also I was the original co-founder of the original Women's Studies program at Southern. It's now called the Women and Gender Studies program. And I've done a lot of other crazy things. Serving on boards, serving on editorial boards. I actually mentioned mentoring people. My future plans are I'm going to try to retire at the end of this academic year, but I'm still going to teach in the doctoral program. My co-author, Julie, and I here teach in that program. We teach a course together. It's always good to have a co-teacher, especially if you have different points of view. Julie's a very good clinician. I'm more of a macro policy person. So that's great. So I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to publish and do research, etc. I don't think I'm going to play hockey anymore. I've had too many surgeries. Hip replacement, ripped quad, ripped everything. I don't know. I do enjoy sailing though, but let me tell you, that's a dangerous sport too. So I really want to thank Penn for this honor, and I know I rambled on a little bit here, but it's great. I want to thank you for bringing people here and putting this on. I think it's a great thing. It's good to see people that I used to run into occasionally once upon a time. Thank you.
I forgot to mention Ramapandi. Was
So
my
thank
advisor
you
in
again
my
to
master's
everybody for
program.
being here. So what we're gonna do is there's some lunches outside and they're packed up, so everybody can grab one if they'd like. And we're gonna walk over to Castor, SP2's building, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. And there's a tent in the back courtyard and some tables set up. So if you'd like to join us, we're gonna sit and have some lunch following this. So thank you again. Congratulations again to all our investors.